what problems are we trying to solve? And it's basically this. The current blockchain architectures don't give you a whole lot of actual use. The adoption is pretty low. Ethereum, EOS, not that much is happening, mostly gambling and trading. So the question is basically how to make blockchain useful, and this project is my answer to that. The understanding of how the centralized and decentralized features interact together leads us to the idea of the blockchain gap, which is basically the notion that a lot of decentralized and centralized features are really at odds with each other, but in some ways are both useful. So, for example, if you have a lot of recourse, you don't have a lot of security. If you have a lot of security, you don't have a lot of recourse. The left is decentralized, sorry, the right is decentralized, kind of Bitcoin, Ethereum. The left is centralized, kind of more traditional. You know your customer is at odds with anonymity. Trust-based is at odds with trustless, obviously. Agile and resilient are at odds. Agile is generally centralized, resilient is generally decentralized. And compliant and useful. Compliant means, respects the local laws and regulations, and useful means it does everything you want. And you kind of notice that you have, again, on the left, you see kind of the centralized outcomes. On the right, you have decentralized outcomes. In some situations, you want to use a trust-based relationship with another person because it's cheap, it's easy. If you know the person and if you trust them, why not? Right? But in other ways, you want your loans to be collateralized. Real world, digital world, human, automaton, sometimes you want to interact with a human because they will solve your problem in a human sort of related way, and sometimes you want to interact with a machine because you actually don't want humans to be part of that interaction at all. So we notice that in this way, if we want to build useful applications using kind of these new models and ideas, I want to keep track of time, sorry guys. If you want to build something useful, you have to make sure that you are able to have some of both. You want to be able to hybrid together the good things from both sides of this equation.
Tonight I'll be trying to make the case why we believe at Maker that decentralized stablecoins can actually be a huge driver for blockchain adoption and kind of usher in a new wave. So what was originally so attractive about Bitcoin, I think can be maybe summed up in these 4 points. So the first thing is the fact that Bitcoin is, of course, decentralized, which is very different from the 2008 banking system that had these central institutions that really were too big to fail. Second thing is that within Bitcoin, code is law. There are no exceptions to the rule. The blockchain executes whatever is in the code, and once again, this is very different from the economic environment in the 2008 banking crisis, where moral hazard and the banking bailout was kind of an exception on the normal economic rule that whoever takes a risk should also bear the responsibility and live up to that risk. The fourth element that I want to highlight is transparency. So although that sometimes becomes a problem when the blockchain transactions, maybe we want to have some private data in them, it's quite a new thing that we're tackling. But actually at this point, we should remember that transparency is one of the key elements that really drove the popularity of Bitcoin. And then last but not least, trust element. So whereas the banking system requires a lot of trust in institutions and people, the blockchain really is trustless. So, yeah, if Bitcoin has all these properties, then why do we need something more? Well, in the trade shift business, which is supply chain management, there exactly you can really not imagine using a coin that is as volatile as Bitcoin, because as a business, when you buy products, you need to make a planning, you need to sell them later on. You really can't have it that at one point your Bitcoin is worth twice as much as the moment when you're selling your products, for example. So here is where the concept of a stablecoin, and in our case, the DAI stablecoin, where it enters and where the story really begins. So what is DAI exactly? For us, the main thing is that DAI is a decentralized stablecoin on Ethereum. So we're the first one actually who brought something in production. The idea is quite simple. It's a soft peg to the US dollar. We say soft peg because there might be some deviation, but the deviation is temporary, and the value of the stablecoin goes back to $1 over time. The most important thing that I want to highlight here is that DAI is asset-backed. So there is collateral, as we'll see, on the Ethereum blockchain that really is the backing of that $1 value of every DAI coin. And of course, it does have the advantages of what we are also use of for Bitcoin, so it's programmable money, and it doesn't have a central point of failure.